Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. That's good. It's recognizing. For people online, if you can't hear me or see me, feel free to yell out, okay? I will also check the online every now and then. Currently, we have 3 people online. Okay, yeah. For people online, if you can't see or hear me, just feel free to speak up. Request. Okay. You should have received an email from me like 20 minutes ago. It's an Excel spreadsheet, Excel workbook, to be honest. It's called PivotTable Tricks. This workbook, this file, has some data we need to use as example for today's workshop. Okay, I believe it's being recorded. That's good. Okay, let's get started. Make it a bit bigger. I don't know why once I plug in the projector, everything becomes small. Today's topic is about using pivot table in Excel. Have you used or heard about pivot table before? Kind of, yeah. Pivot table is a very, very useful tool in Excel. For people online, have you used pivot table before or heard of pivot table before? If you have, give me a thumb up, please. Any response? Yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm just checking. I'm still in line with me. We're still online. Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm pretty sure today you will learn something new from me. So first of all, pivot table is a data analysis tool or compute calculator. It's kind of calculating tool in Excel. Okay. Basically, we can calculate lots of things by putting variables in a table format, and then Excel will do the calculation in the background. Okay, so the best way to learn something is to learn from examples. So first of all, let's say we have this kind of toy data. Okay, in our workbook, I emailed you half an hour ago ish. This is a worksheet called staff. The first worksheet, staff. So you can see this is I have a little data set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. They are staff members of some little firm. So I have 6 observations or 6 individuals, and I have 4 variables: name, sex, age in years, and the position in the little firm. Okay. For people online, if you have any problem, feel free to yell out. Okay. All good? So far so good? You see the data? You have the data to play with you? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Now, suppose I want to calculate like the average age of female employees and compare it with the average age of male staff members. Of course, you can calculate kind of manually here. You can pick up the age of the male staff members and then calculate the average, and then do the same thing for the female staff members. That's no problem. Okay, Excel can do that for you. You can use Excel to do that, but we can also do that using pivot table. Pivot table will make things much easier. Okay, so let's say I want to calculate the average age of each gender group or each sex group. So first of all, you need to tell Excel, I'm going to create a pivot table based on this spreadsheet data. This is my data. This is my data set, my data range in Excel language. Okay, a range of data, and I need to build a pivot table based on this. If your data is set up like this, like a block, nicely, individuals in rows and the variables in columns. If that's your setup of data, you just have to randomly highlight one cell in your data range. Any random cell in your data range, okay? And then go to insert. You see a pivot table here? And insert a pivot table. Excel will automatically recognize your range of data as this block. You see the flashing border? Excel recognizes that automatically. And then Excel will also, by default, create a pivot table in a new spreadsheet. Okay, yeah, that's okay. I'm happy to create a pivot table on a new spreadsheet. So I click OK here. So I have now you have a new spreadsheet in your file. Okay, yeah. We have a new spreadsheet in the file here. You can rename your spreadsheet if you like. Go to your go to the tab of your spreadsheet and then right click. You can rename it. Okay, you can rename whatever you like. Let me call this one pivot. Pivot. Okay. Yeah. We talked about that before, right? You can name your different spreadsheets in one workbook. You can give a tab color. Right click. You can give a tab color. Okay, maybe orange. Okay. We use the other sheets later. Okay, so pivot table. The new pivot table is in the worksheet called pivot. Okay. All right, now you can see you have a kind of a empty pivot table here. It's called pivot table 1. That's the name of the pivot table. Currently, nothing is in here because we haven't tell Excel what variables to calculate using this pivot table. Okay, you have to specify that manually. So let's highlight the pivot table first. Once you click the pivot table area, you can see this pivot table field list show up. Once you click out of the pivot table area, the field list will load up. Okay, and then if you come back to click the pivot table area again, the pivot table fields list will show up again. All right. So before talking about the field list, let's give our pivot table a name because we will create quite a few different pivot tables today. So I'm going to name it properly. So click your pivot table area, and then you'll see these two new menus show up at the top of your Excel workbook: pivot table design, pivot table analyze, and design. We go to analyze. And I see pivot table name. So here you can give a pivot table a different name. Okay. By default, Excel will just name a pivot table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's when we have a lot of pivot tables, it's probably not quite good way of naming the things. So we can give a name. How about this one? We can call this one staff age. Okay. Name whatever you like. Okay. Enter. Okay. You can see now your pivot table name change here, staff age. Okay. For people online, are you still with me? All good? Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now I'm going to show you something you probably haven't seen before. So why do I name the pivot table this give a name. So I said before, we may have quite a few different pivot tables today. So I'm going to name them differently, then I can find them easily later. So how to see an overview of all the pivot tables in different worksheets in this file. Excel now has something called a navigation panel. Okay, if you go to View, and go to Navigation, there's a new thing, Navigation Pane. There's a new function of Excel, Microsoft Excel. Okay, you go to View, and you can click Navigation. Okay, so this is a new way for Excel to show you the objects in your workbook. Okay, so currently we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 worksheets. Pivot, staff, customers, orders merged. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sheets here. And then in the pivot table sheets, there's something called the staff page. That's my first pivot table here. So later on, when we create other pivot tables in this workbook on different spreadsheets, all of them will be listed here. So if you go to View Navigation panel, you can find them easily. Okay, and if I want to jump to different spreadsheets to view different things, I will also see them. Okay. So in the staff spreadsheet, I have this little data set. Okay, and then on the other worksheets, I have some tables here. Okay, so in customers, I have tables here. In orders, I have a table here. Okay. So basically, that's the new stuff you probably didn't know. View navigation pane. Okay. If you're using a very old version of Excel, like Excel 2016 or older, you probably don't have this function. The navigation pane. All right. Okay. All right. So I mentioned before, we have to design the pivot table using the pivot table field list. Okay. When you click the pivot table, if you don't have this pivot table field list, that means you have turned it off already. Okay. To turn it back on, you have to go to pivot table analyze, make sure the field list is on. This button is on. Okay. If you click a pivot table and go to pivot table analyze, and if you turn off this button field list, it will be off forever. So no matter how much you click the pivot table area, the field list will still be closed. So we have to go back to pivot table analyze and turn on the field list button. Okay. Yeah. Also, if you turn off here, if you click close, that's equal to say turn off the field table list button. See? Yeah. So sometimes we have to turn it off because our screen is not that big. It's too squashy, so we turn it off. Okay. If you want to mount it back, you go to pivot table analyze and turn the button on, field list. Okay. Now this is a pivot table field list. That's the default look of the pivot table field list. Okay. I like to change it to a different way. So if you click this little setting kind of logo here, we can change the layout of our pivot table list to a different way. I prefer the second way, this way. So on the left-hand side, you have a vertical list of all the variables in your data. Our data set is very simple, has only 4 variables, something. But imagine if you're working on a very large data set, you may have a long list of variables here. Okay, And then on the right-hand side, we can design the pivot table. The second thing you can change here is the sort of your variables here. So currently it's sort in the data source order. You can also sort from A to Z. Age, name, position, sex. Okay. This only change the field list here. It doesn't change your data. The data is still the same. Okay. It only change the look here. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to sort from A to Z. When you have a long list of variables, you may not be able to find that easily. So you can always change it back. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, is everyone still with me online? Okay, yeah. That's very simple stuff. Now, what did I want to do? I want to compare the average age between males and females. So I'm going to just imagine you designing a table. So I'm going to put the sex into rows. Once you put the variable into a rows or columns, pivot table will list the distinct values of that variable. So I put the sex into rows. In my data set, I have two values, male and female, F and M. So pivot table will list the two distinct values into different rows, the F row and the M row. Okay? And then I want to compare the average age between these two sex groups. So I'm going to put the age, drag it into values. Once you drag a variable into values, if the variable is numbers, pivot table will calculate the sum of the variable by default. So currently, Excel calculates the total of age in the female group and the total of age in the male group. Okay, if you look at the data, I have two females. The total of age in the female group should be 55. Okay, as we saw here, 55 for female. And then the total age of male group is 119. Okay, that's not what we want. We want to calculate the average. Want to calculate the average. How to calculate average is very easy. You go to the highlighted cell of the sum of age column, and then you right click, summarize value by, you go to average. Okay. Yeah. There are some commonly used calculations like sum, count, average, maximum, minimum, product, and there are also others like standard deviation. There are kind of 11 commonly used calculations. So we want to calculate average in each group. So you right click the number and you summarize value by, let's choose average. Okay. Now we get the average for each sex group. The average of female is 27.5. Average of male employees are 29.75. Okay. Yeah. You can also modify the decimals here if you need to. If you need more decimal or less decimal, it can be done by clicking these little buttons in the Home tab. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now let's say I have some changes in my data. So go back to our data set. So let's say I made a mistake in my data entry. Let's say the first guy, Adam, he's not 45 years old. He is let's see 25 years old. Okay. So let's go back to the pivot table. So currently our average of male is 29.75. Let's say we have a mistake for the age of Adam. So it's not 45. It should be 25. So you can change your value here in your data set. We change it to 45 to 25. And then we come back to our pivot table. To see the change, you have to refresh the calculation for your pivot table. So how to refresh it? You click your pivot table and then go to pivot table analyze. There's a fresh button here. Okay. Once you click fresh, the calculation will change. See? Yeah. So I think you can also change the setting in the background to make it fresh automatic. But by default, the refreshing has to be manually. Have it done manually. Okay. So if you have any changes in your data, in the values, you can change it, but make sure you come back to a pivot table to refresh it. You can refresh only this one or refresh all. Okay. Currently there's only one pivot table here, so just click refresh. You will refresh calculation. How about we have let's see, we have a big changes, like we delete some rows or we add some new rows. Okay. If I have a new person here, so I have a Gigi, a lady, female. She's her age is, let's see, 20 years old. New officer. Okay. So we have a new person here now. We go to our pivot table. Okay, we can add a new column. We can add a new calculation. We can add a name into our values. Because names are not numbers, Excel will calculate the count, the frequency by default. So you can see the problem here? It still shows 2 females and 4 males. It doesn't reflect the change of the new row. 4 males and 2 females, that's what the data has before we add Gigi. And then if you click the refreshing button here, it doesn't help either. Because the change you made is we add a new row or new column or delete a row or delete a column. Refreshing doesn't help. Refreshing is only helpful when you just make changes in your data set. How can you change that? You have to change the data source. So go to pivot table, analyze, and change the data source. Change the data source. So you can see the pivot table is still using the old data range as data source, which is from A1 to D7. It doesn't include the new one, Gigi. Okay, if you want to include Gigi in there, you have to come here and then highlight the new data range. Okay, you have to manually change the data source. Okay, and click OK. Now we have a Gigi in there. We have 3 girls and 4 boys. Gigi is in the calculation now. Okay. But I think we have a way to work around that. That is to use data in the table. You see, it's a bit annoying here. Every time you have a new row, or if you delete some rows, let's say we delete this row. Or add a new row, you have to, I guess if you delete, it's probably okay. But if you add a new one, that is not okay. Yeah, if you delete, it's okay. But if you add a new one in your data, you have to come back to change your change your data source manually, which is a bit annoying. Okay, so how to make it easier? We can put our data in a table. Okay, we can put our data in the table. So if I go back to my data stuff, and then highlight any cell, and then go to insert, and this time insert a table. So we're going to create a table using our data set. We're going to put our data set into a table. So if you highlight any cell of your data range, and then go to insert and then click table. Excel will recognize a block of data automatically. And then Excel will ask you to, if your data has headers or variable names in the first row. That's it. Our data have variable names, have headers in the first row. Okay. Click OK. Okay. And again, once you highlight your table, you will see the table design menu, and then you can name your table. Give a table a different name. You can call this one staff. Staff members. Okay. And of course, if you go to view and then navigation pane, you will see a new table here called the staff members. This one. Okay. Yeah. Why is it good? Because once you set up your data as a table, we can add a person easily. We can add a, let's say we have a Helen, a new staff member, male, a female, and a 25-year-old, and a new manager, a young manager. Okay. Once you add data into a table, that row will be included into a table automatically. Why this is good? Because now our pivot table is created based on the table of data. And then you don't have to change your data source manually anymore. You just click refresh. The new person is included because the new person is automatically included into a table. And then your pivot table is built based on that data table. So you just have to click refresh. That change of new row will be reflected here. Okay, so I have 3 females and 4 males. 3 females and 4 males. Okay. I think I deleted 1 person before, right? 1 row. Yeah. So that's a good way of working around that. So normally we will set up the data as tables and then name them properly. And then we create pivot table from tables, from data tables. And then any changes in your data source, in your data table, you just have to refresh your pivot table. You don't have to manually change the data source here. Okay. This is a very simple thing for this for this part. Any questions here? Shortcut. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Some button. Control F. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, refresh. You can create a copy of your pivot tables. If you have a pivot table here, and if I make a copy of a pivot table, just highlight your pivot table, and then copy. right-click copy or Control-C. Okay, Control-C. If you're using Windows system, if you're using MacBook, it's Command-C. I know. Anyway, right-click copy, and then you can paste here. Control-V. You have two pivot tables on the same spreadsheet. It's okay. And then you can change the second one. Second one, maybe you want to compare the average age of positions. So I'm going to put the position into the rows. Okay. So I have 3 managers, 4 officers. The manager's average age is 27. The officer's average is 24 or 23.5 years old. Okay. Yeah. So that's a quick way of creating a pivot table. You don't have to go back to that stuff like here and then insert pivot table. You can just go here, copy and paste a pivot table. Okay. All right. Okay. Now let's work on something else. Let's look at data. Let's look at data. Let's look at this one. Let's look at the work spreadsheet called orders. Okay. Currently, there's a long list of data. It's only have 4 or 5 variables, but we have like hundreds of rows, lots of orders. Okay, ordered by different customers, customer ID, and the order ID, about the product the order is about, and then the units sold, and the date of the order. Okay, we have 700 orders. Now let's create a pivot table based on this. Currently, the data is already in the table. It's called a table orders. The name of the table is called order. Okay. So again, highlight any cell of the data range or the table of data you're going to use, and then go to Insert Pivot Table. Okay. You can put by default, Excel will create a pivot table on a new spreadsheet. Okay. I can also put a pivot table on an existing one. I'm going to put it on a pivot table spreadsheet. I click existing, and then come here, click this little icon to tell Excel where to put the pivot table. Okay, this little icon here, and then go to your the place you want to place your pivot table. So I want to place my pivot table on the pivot table spreadsheet, starting from this cell A17, and then click this icon to go back, this corner here, and then click OK. This is how to place a new pivot table into some existing spreadsheet. Okay. What I want to know? I want to create a frequency table of the products. Okay, remember in orders, we have a product column here. Okay, I want to have a frequency table of it. Okay, I want to say how many times each type of product were ordered. Okay, so I'm going to put a variable order, product into the rows. Okay, the pivot table will list the distinct values in the column product. So we'll show the different types of product of the company. Okay, it's a food company. And then I want a frequency table of this product. I want to see how many times each product or order. Okay, so I can drag the same variable. You can reuse it. Drag the same variable into values. Okay, because the variable is not numbers. Yeah, it's a product, the name. It's a kind of a text. So pivot table will calculate count by default. Okay. If you drag a number, a column of numbers, Excel will calculate sum by default. But we can always go back to right click and summarize value by whatever calculation you want. And for frequency table, I want the frequency. Frequency means counting, so I want count. Okay. Yeah. So currently we have 700 orders in total, as I mentioned before. In our data set, we have 700 rows. 701 rows. The first row is used for variable names, so 700 orders. Okay, so among the 700 orders, what are the frequencies of each product? That's the frequency table. The most popular one is a chocolate chip cookie, and then followed by some other types of the products. Okay, that's the frequency table. That's probably the first statistical calculation you learn in your data analysis subject. Okay. All right. We can also calculate the relative frequencies. Relative frequencies means proportions. So, okay. So that's the raw frequencies. You can also calculate relative frequencies. I can drag the same variable again into values, a new column. Okay. And then for the second column, I'm going to right click. And this time I'm going to show value as percentage of column total or grand total. Okay. Doesn't matter because at the moment, column total is grand total. Okay. But next, in our next example, we'll have some variable in the columns. So column total, row total will be different. So currently, you can just click percentage of grand total. We see the relative frequencies or the proportions of each product. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you some tricks. So first of all, you may want to sort the rows by the frequency values or relative frequency values from largest to smallest. Okay, so I want to sort by 202 and then 109, 109, 94, 93, 93. So you can right click the values you want to sort by, and then right click sort. You can sort from largest to smallest or smallest to largest, or more complicated options. Okay, we don't go there today. Just say let's want to sort from largest to smallest. It's sorted. Largest to smallest. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's a nice way to show your results to your readers. Remember, data analysis is about telling a story or insights from data. You have to be the story writer. Okay. I guess this sorting is more meaningful. Okay. Yeah. You can also sort on. They can sort here. You may also add a conditional formatting. Let me try. Okay. Yeah, conditional formatting also working here. Yeah, you can even highlight the cells and then go to conditional formatting. You can highlight the cells by color bar, solid bar or gradient bar. Okay. And then it's dynamic. Once you change your sort from smallest to largest, it changes accordingly. Okay. Just some small tricks, nothing complicated. You can also change the column names of your pivot table here. You click the cell here, and you can change to let's see, frequency. And this one I want to change to relative frequency. Sounds a bit academic, just change the proportion. Okay, or maybe change it to some language more like business people. Share, market share, whatever. You can name it, okay? Whatever you like. So you can make your, of course, this one as well. So instead of calling row labels, I say product. Product, not predict. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, very flexible Excel stuff. And this table, if you need it in your report, just copy and paste. Copy and then paste into, you can paste into a Word document. You can paste as a pivot table. You can paste as a table. You can paste as a picture. Up to you. Okay. Yeah. And then paste your assignment number 2, something, whatever you need. Okay. Yeah. Today is not about Microsoft Word, so we don't go there. So we just tell you can copy and paste into our Microsoft Word. You can copy and paste into your PowerPoint slides if you need to. Okay. All right. I'm checking the things I want to cover. Okay. One cool thing I want to show you. You see, when you click the label here, you see the little button here. There are some tools here you can use. At this bottom right corner of this label for your rows, at this bottom right corner here. And you can choose the rows you want to hide, okay, by selecting or deselecting these rows. If you need to hide some rows, okay, or show all of them, okay. You can also go to this one, value filter. So I want to see the top 3 most popular products. Go to top N and see top. You can see top or bottom. Bottom 3 or top 3. Okay. Top. Let's say top 3. And then items by, you can buy whatever here. Here we have 2 columns, frequency and share. You can buy frequency or buy share. In this case, it's the same because share is a proportion of frequency, right? So anyway, you choose the column, filter value by. So I'm going to choose the top 3 from according to the column frequency. Okay. My computer is a bit slow once I plug in the projector. Is it useful? Sometimes. Yes, it's a cool thing. You may or may know that before today. I know. Hopefully you learn something new. Okay. You can value filter. You can say equal to something, not equal to something, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or between something. Okay, you can see between frequency or share between 10% to 50%. Nothing left. What happened? I have nothing between 10%. Yeah, no, 10%. Let me try again. Value between. Let's see. Try frequency. Frequency between 100 and 250. Should be top 3 rows. Again, same thing. All right. So there's some cool things here. Value filter. I guess top bottom one is probably the most useful one. Top 3, top 10, bottom 3, bottom 10. This one's probably the most useful one. Okay. But remember what filter you applied, and then make some notes if you apply some filter there. Okay. Almost. Okay. Next one. We can also change the labels of the rows here if you need to. Okay. You can also change labels here if you need to. But normally, anyway, how to say that? You can change the values in the data. That's probably the best way. Okay. But if you just want to make this table and then prepare for your presentation or report, you don't want to mess up the data, you can also change the labels here of the rows. Okay. So this one, you can call this one chocolate. I don't want the cheap, just want chocolate. It's okay. It works. Excel allow you to do that. Okay. If you need to sugar, or this one is a let's say raw sugar or something. Excel allow you to change the row labels. Okay. Up to you. If you just want to have a quick change of the table and then prepare for your report or presentation, you can change it here. But if you want to have a systematic change of everything, then you have to go back to your column and change your raw values in your column later. Okay. That will make all the tables related to this data set change it accordingly. Okay. But you just want to, if you just want a quick change, you can change your labels here. Okay. Okay. You can also manually order the labels. Right click and then you can move it up and down. You can move Alt mill reason. You can move it to maybe to the beginning. Okay, so if you need to manually shuffle the rows according to some reason, you can do that here. Move up and down. Okay, yeah. All right, or move chocolate to the bottom. Yeah. If you need to, sometimes, who knows? Okay. All right. This is a frequency table and a relative frequency table, and then some related little tricks. Let's move to next one. Let's see. I want to have two variables related in my calculation. All right. So again, I'm going to insert pivot table from the same data set again. This time go to insert pivot table from the to our existing spreadsheet, which is again pivot table spreadsheet, and put it here. And go back and click OK. That's my pivot table number 4. You can rename it if you like. I'm not going to do that. Just leave it here. Called pivot table number 4. Doesn't matter. I want to create a grouped frequency table for numerical variables. Okay, for this variable, units sold. How many units are sold for each order? I'm going to have a frequency table of this variable, units sold. I put into rows. Once you drag a numerical variable into the rows or columns, okay, the pivot table will list distinct values from smallest to largest. Here, these are the distinct values of orders. Okay, how many values I have here? Probably 600 something. Huh? They're all distinct, different? I know. Yeah. Yeah. So this here show the values. So if any column in my data in this column unit sold, if any 2 rows or more than 2 rows have the same number, some duplicates, those duplicates will only be shown once in my pivot table. So maybe more than 2 orders have a 200 units sold in per order. So they are duplicates. Doesn't matter. Pivot table only show the distinct values. Okay. I want to create a grouped frequency table of this numerical variable. Because if I just call the frequency, if I just drop the same variable again into the values, and then right-click, summarize value as count or frequency, I guess most of frequency will be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'll get some 2 or 3. So 214 is used twice. Okay. And then some order 293 is used 3 times. So 3 rows, 3 orders have the same quantity sold, 293. Okay. But most of the values, the frequency will be either 1 or 2. Okay. Yeah. So this whole list here will be less than 700 because 700 orders, some of them they have the same number of quantities sold. So we have a less than 700 distinct values. Okay. In statistics, we have to make clear that there are 2 different concepts: observations and then values. Multiple observations can share the same value. Okay, there are 2 different concepts. Anyway, I'm going to group my values into some equally long or equally wide intervals. I call them groups or bins in statistical language, and then I count the number of orders in each value interval or bin or group. Okay, Excel can do that very easily for you. So go to the values list here, click any single one of them, and then right-click group. Right-click group. Okay. Excel will start from smallest and finish at the largest. Why do we have a 4495.5 there? Let me have a look. That's a bit weird. Or maybe, I don't know. That doesn't matter. Anyway, so let's group them. So you go to this cell and group. So you decide how wide the group should be. Okay. You can start from smallest 200. Okay. I'm okay with that. You can change your starting point. You can change to a smaller or larger number. Okay. I'm happy with 200, so I keep 200 there. And then my group weight or group interval will be yeah, I'm happy with 1,000. If you want 500, you can also do 500. No. Let's say I'm starting from 0. And then group by 500. So the first group will be from 0 to 500. And the next group will be 500 to 1,000. And then 1,000, 100, 500. Okay? This is my group. Yeah, you can just go back to ungroup. Or go back to group again. You don't have to ungroup first. Just go back to group and then modify the group setting. So if you think 500 is too big, the interval is too wide, that means you have less than enough groups. You can change to maybe 300. They have more groups. Okay, just go back to group and then change the interval to let's say maybe 400.
Also, is the quickest way if you wanted to like have 2 separate groups, just copy and paste and do the whole group.
Yeah. I prefer 500 because I'm thinking about my readers. 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 11. Count by 5. That's we're learning in kindergarten. More intuitive. Yeah. Remember data analysis is about present the story or insights from data. You have to consider your readers. Okay. If you choose 75 as a group interval, it's okay. It's your choice. But I guess it's probably difficult to comprehend. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So now we see we call them group frequencies. So we have 68 orders in this data set. We have 60 rows, 68 rows with their units sold falling between 0 to 500. And 133 rows, 133 orders with their units sold between 500 and 1,000. You may ask me, now what's the boundary here? Like 500, if my quantity is 500, should it be in the first group or second group? Second group. Because the boundary only includes from the beginning. if I write it properly, it should be 0 inclusive, but 500 not inclusive. So the lower bound is included, the upper bound is not included, except for the last one. The last one is from 4,000, including 4,000 until 4,500, including 4,500. But in the middle groups, the upper boundary is not included. So if our value have 500, that will be included in the second row, in the second group. Yeah. So in other words, the first group is from 0 to 499.9999999. If it's 500, that transaction will be counted in the second group. Also, if it's 1,000, that one will be counted in the third group. Okay, yeah, it's just some small tricks. All right, go over a bit time. So if you have time, can stay here with me. Otherwise, you can read the recording. All right. I will email you. Yeah, but if you receive my Excel file this morning, it will also email second email later this afternoon. Yes, that's the group. If I put into columns, which doesn't happen very often, we can also group by columns as well. It's also allowed. You see. we can also create grouped columns. Excel can do that as well. But normally we put into rows and we create groups into rows. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now some more small tricks. I'm going to create a new spreadsheet. Sorry, new pivot table. Control C, Control V, and drag everything out. I'm going to create. This is my new pivot table. It's empty, nothing in there at the moment. It's just a vacant pivot table to be designed. I'm going to create a contingency table or two-way cross table from my data. Okay. Two-way cross table is also called two-way cross table of frequencies is also called a contingency table. So I'm going to put let's see products into the rows, and then I'm going to put customer into the columns. No, too many. Not order. Sorry. Products into rows, yes, and then one second variable. Customer maybe. Customer into the columns. Right. We have 5 customers, 5 big customers of our company. Okay. And now this is a kind of a contingency table. Okay, you put some variable into row, you put some variable into column, and then we count the contingency of each cell. We can count the number of orders in each combination. Okay, so we can make it my first column wider. We can drag any variable into the values, and then make sure we request not sum, we request the count. Summarize value by counting. So total of total is still 700. You can we have different row totals. That's the number of orders for different products. We have different totals for each column. That's the total orders for each customer. The total of totals is 700 because we have 700 orders, right? And then in the cell, we have the number of orders for each customer, for each product. Okay, yeah. Currently, we don't have any empty cells here. Okay, so in case we have like customer 1, so in case this person didn't order any oatmeal raisin toast, and this one will be empty, and then by default, Excel will show empty as an empty cell, nothing in there. We can have a look at example maybe in the staff or no. In our example before, if I in our first example of staff members, if I put gender into rows and then position into columns, and then we put the names into okay. So in case I'm going to change my data, in case we don't have any female officer, we go back here. If all the females are managers, and then refresh my pivot table. You see this one is empty cell because we don't have a female officer. All the females are managers, okay? And then in the pivot table, these cells will be empty cell. And then you can tell Excel how to show empty cell, okay? So you go to pivot table, this one, and then you right click, pivot table options. Pivot table options, okay? And then pivot table options, and then you can ask Excel to show empty cells as, you can show as 0. Okay, yeah. I mean, depending on your format habit, if you want to show empty cell as empty cell, it's okay. If you want to show empty cell as 0, you show as 0. Or sometimes in finance, we do that as, oh no, how do we do in finance? Show empty cells as new? Or as a dash line, I know. What do you do in finance? Empty cell as hyphen, just didn't work. Doesn't work? No? Oh, yeah. You tell Excel how to show empty cell, okay? The other little thing is in the pivot table options, we can also uncheck this one, auto fit column ways on update. So when we put something, yeah, that will probably keep the column ways unchanged. If I do this one, pivot table options, if I uncheck the auto fit with column ways on update, see, once I change it, the column ways changed. But if I uncheck that, if I uncheck that, let's see what happened. The column ways doesn't change. Yeah. It's just some small trick. Pivot table options, and you can choose to uncheck the column auto column ways up on update. Okay. So you keep the column ways unchanged. You don't want it auto fit. Okay. So some small tricks. All right, and then next one, I'm going to talk about the time variable in pivot table. So let's see, I have a new pivot table here. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste this one. Then put everything out. I'm going to talk about how to use the this variable, the date. We have a variable about date. Okay, so it's a special variable. It's about time. So I'm going to look at the I'm going to analyze the performance over the years. So I'm going to put the variable date into rows. So first of all, your data is set up like this, okay? This is Excel recognize their dates, okay? And then once you drag the date into rows, once Excel recognize the column as date, once you put that variable or field into rows, or even columns, I believe columns also work. If I put date into columns, yes, also work. You can see Excel will recognize the year, quarter, month, and day. Okay, I'm going to put the date into the rows. Excel will automatically recognize the year, the quarter, the month, and the day, and then add some new fields into a field list. Okay, and you can expand it. Year, quarter, month, year, quarter, month. Okay, this is a very cool thing. You don't have to manually prepare the date, month, quarter. Once the data is set up as date, Excel will recognize the different levels of a time unit, year, quarter, months, and do that for you. Okay. And then if you want to change your quarter to, like a quarter, you can change the quarter. Quarter 3. If you change the label here, all the other quarter 3 will be changed accordingly. Okay, you see, they all change. Same thing if you change to quarter 4, all the other quarter 4s will be changed accordingly. Quarter 1, quarter 2, oh, what did I do? Should be quarter 2, right? So it will be changed in all the other rows. Okay. And then we can, let's say, we can analyze the number of orders. Drag the order. You can drag any variables into the drag any variable into the values. And then I don't want count. I want, you can choose here value field setting. I don't want sum, I want count. Okay. Okay. That shows the count in different time period. Suppose I don't want a month, I just want a year and quarter. That's okay. I just uncheck months here. And then uncheck date. I just want to say years and quarters. Okay. Just uncheck the date and the month. Okay. I want to see just years and quarters. And I want to change the format of the table. I want to put years and quarters in different columns. So currently, it's kind of hierarchical. Okay. I want to put them two different columns. The first column is about years. Second column is about quarters. Okay. That can be done. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to turn off this little folding button. I don't want the buttons here. It's a bit annoying. Okay. So you go to pivot table analyze. You see this one button here? You can turn off the button. The button. Turn off the buttons. Okay. And then I'm going to go to design, pivot table design, and then report layout. Currently, it's called a compact form. I'm going to show them into tabular form. Okay. In tabular form, that means year will be a column, quarter will be the second column. Okay. I don't want a compact form, the current form. I want the tabular form. It looks like this. Okay. Years, this column, and then quarters, second column. That's called a tabular form. I don't want the totals here, the subtotal, and I don't even want a grand total. It's okay. Okay, in the design panel, you go subtotal, and then don't show subtotals. The yearly subtotal disappear, and also you can also turn off the grand total. Off for rows and columns. All right. So remember, it's in the design part. You click the highlight your pivot table. In the design, you can change your layout, report layout, compact form or tabular form. You can also turn on or off the subtotal and grand total for columns or rows or both. Okay. And I also want to repeat. You see the years here? I want to repeat the years in different rows. So I want on this one to be 2019, and then the other the last few rows I want to show 2020. So I want to repeat the year labels. So again, go to the design. In report layout, you can click repeat all item labels. Okay, that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's the format you probably very often you need for some statistical analysis. Okay, because we put different variables in different columns. Okay, and then we don't want missing values. Okay, so repeat labels for all the repeat labels across rows. But sometimes we don't want to repeat the labels because it's kind of redundant in a report. So you can choose and do not repeat labels. And then what do? We can go to make it center and merge. Okay, so we'll merge these two rows for 2019 and then with 2019 in the center. And for these guys, 2020 rows, we can merge them and then put them into the center. Okay, and then how to do that? It's quite easy as well. Okay, Let me check this one first. That's the other way to do that. So for repeating labels, you can also right-click and the field setting, and then in the layout, you can choose to repeat labels or not repeat labels. Right-click, field setting, layout. If you don't want to repeat labels, you can choose uncheck this one, repeat labels. Okay, so as I said, I want to merge them and then put in the center. So to do that, you have to go to right-click, PivotTable Options, and then go to Layout and choose this one, Merge and Center cells with labels. Okay, and click OK. Now it says merged for the yearly rows, and then put in the center. Okay, this is probably the format we prefer for presenting the results into a report or presentation. The tabular form, the ones with repeated labels, is probably the format we need for statistical analysis. One thing. Okay. Okay. Now we may also want to see the change from previous quarter or year. So as the number of orders here, if you want to calculate the change of this quarter from previous quarter, okay, or want to see the change of orders from previous year, you can do it in Excel, in PivotTable very quickly. So you just have to drag the same variable into the values. Remember what we want is count. Okay, and then show value as. So we will summarize value as count because we want the frequency of orders for each quarter, and then go to show value as difference from. Okay, in difference from, you choose from which field as a base field. Okay, so I want to calculate the quarterly change. So I choose quarters, this column here as a base field. I click OK. Okay. I missed one thing. Sorry. Summarize value as change from, and also have to choose base and choose previous. Choose previous. See. So I changed I calculate the change from the previous item in this column of quarters. Click OK. You can see the change. For the first one, there's no change because nothing before this quarter 3. For the second one, the change is increase from 35 to 140, which is 105. Okay, and for this one, the change is from 104 to 105 to 140. And for this one, the change is negative 34, right? Because drop. And for the last one, the change is positive 70. Okay. If I want to calculate the change from last year, I just choose the years as the base field and the previous. This 70 means the change from the Q3 of 2019 to the Q3 of 2020. The change is positive 70. This 35 comes from the change from 140 in Q4 of 2019 to 174.5 in Q4 of 2020. Okay, that's the use the show value as change from, a difference from, or even percentage difference from. Same thing. You can also calculate percentage difference from. Okay, percentage difference from. It's a quarterly from previous, and then you can calculate percentage difference from. Okay, that's something useful as well. And then we can also calculate the we can also calculate something different. We can calculate, maybe we get a new table. And this time I'm going to calculate I put the products into the rows and put the units sold into the values. The product into tables and units sold into the values. And then what else we have? We can calculate we can calculate a field based on what we have. So you go to PivotTable Analyze, and then go to this one, Fields, Items, and Set. You can calculate a field. Okay. First of all, you have to give your new field a name. We can call this one what do we call this? We call this one revenue. Okay, and then the formula will be equal to units sold times, we don't have price here, right? The data should have price. Just imagine and just pretend that the customer ID is price. Okay, we don't have price here. Then we multiply units sold with price. Multiplication is a shift 8, and we get a new variable called the revenue. Okay. That didn't work. How come? Then we have a new field called the revenue, and then we can put the revenue here. Didn't work. How come? Should be working. Let me give it a try again. Something wrong. Maybe something wrong in my calculation. Custom ID. Didn't work. Why? Maybe my calculation is wrong. Modify. Insert. Doesn't work. Okay. Not quite sure. Maybe it's something wrong in my syntax here. Don't know. Maybe work it out later. Have a look. Yeah. Well, anyway, we just leave that for now. The other final thing I want to mention is we can insert a slicer and then timeline in our pivot table. So slicer is like here. You go to pivot table analyze. You can insert a slicer. A slicer is like filtering by variables. You can insert a slicer by more than one variables. So I have two slicers here. One for customer ID and one for products. Okay. And that's like choosing. So if you choose one, so currently I only choose 4. The data is only showing the customer the results from customer ID number 4. I can choose 4 and 3. Okay, and 5. If I choose all of them, it should be 700 orders. Okay, I can unclick any of them. Okay, and then I can also choose which products I want to look at and not look at. It's like a filtering by those variables or fields. We call them slicers. I can design their look if you need to. Slicer setting or something. It's connected to, you can right click, computer is slow, and then choose, you can change the look in the slicer settings. Okay, how they look. And the important thing is you can change the connection of your slicer. So right click, you can go to report connections. So here you can decide which pivot tables you want this slicer to control. So currently, because I click this pivot table first and then click the insert slicer, it's only connected to pivot table this one. You can also let your slicer control more than one pivot tables. Okay, you can see currently our slicer control both these 2 pivot tables. Yeah, but this one you have to change it to report connections, and then change to let it control both pivot tables, 6 and 7 here. So if I make any changes here, both pivot table will change. The other pivot table, because I didn't connect them, like this one, they don't change. So slicer is a kind of useful thing, especially when we are designing something called a dashboard or something. And next to slicer, you can also highlight pivot table. You can also insert something. This is slicer here. You can also insert timeline. If you have a variable like a date, you can also insert a timeline. The timeline variable must be a date or time something. So you have a timeline here. I have timeline here. So currently, the timeline only report connections only connected to the pivot table 7, which is this little one. You can choose which months you want to use. Okay. Make it a bit wider. Yeah. The years. You want both years, or just you want 2019 or 2020, or you want both? Okay. If you want to filter by my computer is a bit slow. Filter by months. Okay. Then you tell Excel which month, which timeline you're looking at. Okay. By dragging this little thing here. So currently, if I drag like this, my data will be analyzed. The only data from this time period will be analyzed, which is August 2019 to August 2020. Okay, so if I change my timeline, the results also change accordingly. So slicer and the timeline, they are kind of cool buttons for you to filter data by variable and by time period. Okay, and of course you can control the connections. Right click, report connections. You can let your slicer and then let your timeline to control more than one pivot tables. And then you can change your look by size and properties. You can change your look, the color, or something. Okay. Yeah. That's probably all. the stuff. Oh, one more thing. You know, sometimes when you double click the cell in the pivot table will show the details of this side. So I double click this one, the 76 orders of fortune cookie according to these slicers and then timeline. Those 76 orders are shown up in this table sheet number 3, 76 orders. Okay. First row is about variable name. So this, for you to show details, to drill into the details of any cells, how they are calculated. This could be useful, and sometimes it's a bit annoying because you may accidentally double click a cell and then the details pop up. If you want to turn that one off, you just right click, PivotTable Options, and then go to Data. You can turn off the Enable Show Details. If you turn it off, then I double click again, doesn't work. Okay, so right click, PivotTable Options, Data. So here you control to enable show details or not. Right click, PivotTable Options, Data, enable or not enable details. That's probably all I want to talk about. And then the last one, I'll probably quickly touch that. That is to create pivot tables based on data model of more than one data set. So here we have orders, which we have used a lot, 700 orders. And then the order shows the customer, the order, the product, the number of products ordered, and the date. I also have a table called the customers here. Customers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the customer details. If I want to build a pivot table using the fields from both tables, from both data sets, you can merge the data set like this one. You have merged them, and then build the pivot tables on this merged data set. That's okay. So you go in the orders. You show the customer, and then for customer 3, you put the customer 3 details. This bunch, and you do this one for each customer in your orders data, because we have a customer ID. That's one way to do it. But it's probably kind of a waste of time and energy, because the data is already there in these 2 spreadsheets. There's no need to create a new spreadsheet to duplicate the original the already existing information. And then what do? We can build a data model, a database model, to connect these 2 related spreadsheets, orders and customers, because they have a common key here. The common key is customer ID and customer number, customer ID. So this common key will connect these 2 spreadsheets. We're going to build a data model based on that, and then we can build create pivot tables based on the data model. So how to create a data model? You go to Data, and then in this Data Tools, you click this one, Relationships. Okay, and then we create a new one. The table I want to build is called the orders. Orders, okay. And the other table I want to connect to is called customers. And then the common field is customer ID. Okay. And then click OK. Okay. I think I had one already, so it's in there already. So if I double click, it's in there already. So I built one already. Okay. And then if you can view, you can view the relationship by clicking this icon, managing data model. What's going on? Okay, this is the you can see view here. You can see the diagram. That's the relationship between a very small data model, including only two data tables, and then they are connected by this ID, this relationship connecting the common field customer ID. Okay, so this one, manage data model, view. You can see the diagram. You can also see data view. There's two spreadsheets. You show diagram. Of course, you can make your data model more complicated with more than two tables, 5, 10 tables. It's okay. That would be a complicated data model. Okay. So our case is a very small data model for only connecting only two spreadsheets. All right, it's in here. Data tools. You create relationships, and they can view them, manage them. And then once you have a data model set up, we go to insert pivot table. You choose from data model. Okay. You can put a new spreadsheet worksheet. Okay. And then we can build a pivot table based on the fields from different customers, from different sheets, from both sheets. So we can have a customer in the rows, and we can have that's from the orders type spreadsheet, and they have their units sold. Maybe put product into columns, and then we have their I don't know, what do we use? And then we have their city into rows as well. Yeah. And then we have units sold into values. Something like that. Yeah, a bit crazy. I mean, so just want to show you that now we have a data model based on two spreadsheets. We can create the pivot tables based on this data model, and then use the different fields from different sheets in this data model to create our pivot table. So you don't have to merge data set into a new data set. We merge them in the background using data model. We don't merge them in a hard way. We merge them in a smarter way. Okay. Maybe you find it useful. That's enough for today. I think we have almost 2 hours. Thank you very much. If you're still here with me, thank you for your time. And otherwise, I will see you again next time. Okay. I will email you the recording this afternoon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you.